The range function is a function that's useful for creating a list of numbers with an arbitrary length. It's typically used in combination with a for loop when we want to perform some action a number of times. Now, the range function produces something called a generator, which I won't go into here, but there's a brief explainer video on what this means. Recall that for loops repeat execution of a block of code once for every item in a sequence. So suppose that we want to do this. So we want to print out hi 500 times using a for loop. We could do this by creating a list with 500 things in it, and I'm not going to put all of the code in here because it's really tedious to write or have to do manually, especially if we don't know how many things we're going to need to create in advance. So instead of creating this list manually, we can create it using the range function. When we call the range function, we're always going to cast it to a list for now, and the generator video is going to explain why that is. But when we call list of range and pass in a number x, then this produces a list with x items in it, where the first item is 0, the second item is 1, and so on until we get to x minus 1. And because we start off with 0, 0 to x minus 1 is a list that has x items in it. So if we wanted to print out hi 500 times, then instead of having to create this list manually, then we could create it by saying list in range of 500, and now we would run this print statement 500 times. So the range function is a function that allows us to create a list of numbers of an arbitrary length, and we'll typically use it in combination with a for loop to repeat something a given number of times. It creates something called a generator, which are introduced in another optional video.